Well, welcome to our What's New with SQL webinar. Already here at December 17th, where the month is half over and the year is nearly over. I'd like to welcome everyone to our session, which will be quick, about 30 minutes. I'm Cheryl Quinlan, and I'm the support manager for SQL, and joining me today is Brandy.
Hi, good morning, Cheryl. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. We'll jump right in and go ahead and get started with our agenda, which is actually a pretty straightforward agenda. We're going to think about SQL and the releases in terms of what we've got going on presently, what's happened in the most recent past, and what's going to happen in the future. When we think about past, present, and future this time of year, it's really hard not to think about the beloved story, The Christmas Carol. We want to stop and assess what we've been doing now and what we've done in the past to ensure a good future. In our industry, the data demands and security requirements change quickly, and we're trying to stay ahead to avoid any future ghosts. Many of our present enhancements have been about maintaining and preserving the foundation. When you look at the suite of SQL products, that foundation spans from the host version of SQL to the client version of Viewpoint, to the browser interface of SQL Web Interface, and also even stretches into a product named SQL Data Warehouse. All of these pieces rely on different technologies, different programming languages, and it's ever so complex, but also so exciting what SQL can offer you. Our current versions are almost as we describe here. And Brandy, I can't believe we didn't catch this typo as many times as we've looked at this PowerPoint.
Right.
But I'm seeing it now. SQL version, the current one, is actually 11.13. We passed version 10 a really long time ago. So we are in version 11, mod 13, which was released last summer. And it included a couple big enhancements, particularly related to something called the Viewpoint Listener, which is replacing the Viewpoint Server. And we'll talk about that in a moment, as well as a couple of tools that we've added to our SQL EX sample library. Viewpoint, and that version is correct, it is 11.19.202 is what we're currently shipping. And that was released in July, and it has an improved SQL Parser as well as an improved View Builder. The SQL Web Interface version that goes along with all of those is 10.31, and that version that we last released addressed some vulnerabilities related to Apache and OpenSSL. And now we can even configure the connection with a TLS type of connection. When we think about this Viewpoint and running the client objects remotely, we have been relying for a long time on run remote command, which requires client access to run. The problem with that is client access isn't supported on Windows 10. So if you had set up a Viewpoint Server PC to receive these remote requests, you've had to keep your server at Windows 7 and not update to a more modern operating system. Well, we've changed all that. And where this comes into play is if you had a client object, like a client report or a client table, and you wanted to either run that in a batch environment, like from a submitted job, or particularly from a job scheduler, or even if you were running one of those from the SQL Web Interface, that's where you had to set up this Viewpoint Server. But last summer, we came out with updated technology that does the same process, but no longer relies on client access's run remote command to do that. We have developed our own command called Viewpoint Remote Command. And it's got a listener piece of it to accept those requests. And most importantly, it will work on Windows 10. There's actually a fair amount of information about Viewpoint Remote Command on our portal if you wanted some more in-depth information. The couple of tools that we have in SQL EX include several script views. Now, a script view, we always said, is it's a script that acts like a view. So it allows you to do multiple step processes, but then it lets you to do all the output that you could the same way with a view. But we've got some tools in here to help you manage your SQL defaults for your users. You know, the administrator is good, and that's a place to go ahead and set a group of user defaults. But if you wanted to compare values, or if you want to base a report about how all of those defaults are set, these two objects will help you do that. The other couple objects are related to the install. How many times maybe have you called the support desk and you said, I put a new version on, and we say, well, how long has it been since you had a version? And maybe you don't recall what version you used to have installed. Well, now we're tracking that for you, and that's actually very helpful sometimes just to know your history of your SQL versions. Then we've also added another script view that allows us to do some find string, to find instances of a particular file or field name. It goes a little bit beyond what the display view D can offer you in terms of output and looking for uses. The big enhancement last summer to Viewpoint was the SQL Parser. I mean, it's something kind of sight unseen. It's just kind of there. And what the SQL Parser helps us do is to parse the SQL. Originally, our parser was designed with the SQL type syntax in mind, but as the industry has changed and native SQL is becoming more the norm, we've had to update our parser to support native SQL more so. So we're trying to encourage folks to go ahead and try out using the syntax of Star Server. Viewpoint will do its best and do a better job today than it used to of parsing that SQL. But when you get some really complex SQL, and we are completely impressed by some of the SQL we see from our customers that are out there using it, jumping into that Files and Fields tab is where we really have to work to parse that statement to make a graphical representation. We're getting there, but and we will support more of this SQL, but over time, we do plan to continue to make improvements to the parser, but we are in complete support of your use of native SQL. The other enhancement is the View Builder. And if you haven't looked at the View Builder is a great tool for novice users. It provides what we call a guided interface. So instead of just jumping into the View Designer where you kind of have a blank slate, a user may not know exactly where to start. What this allows us to do is to give them a step-by-step kind of do this and then click next, do the next step and click next into building their view. So it's a little bit more hand-holding, and I think that this is kind of an exciting enhancement that maybe a lot of you aren't aware of, that we're going to have Brandy give us a demo of it.
Great.
As long as I can figure out how to make Brandy the presenter. Because her name disappeared on me. There we go. It should be coming your way, Brandy.
Okay, I see the option. Perfect. Thanks, Cheryl.
And we see your screen now.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, this is the first step in the View Builder. Like Cheryl said, it's more of a step-by-step. It's not just a blank screen of, oh boy, what do I do first, like you might get in the Files and Fields tab. The first thing is to tell us where the data is coming from. What is your data source? We're just going to select localhost. That's the local system. And we do allow you to use our SQL syntax, or you can go more native syntax and use that option. For now, we'll just stick with SQL. The next thing you need to do is tell us the library and the files that we're going to build the view over. I'm going to pull in 3 different files here. Let's see, and then I go ahead and select the wrong one anyway. We want the part master and sales history. And right away, you'll notice that we get a join window because we've got more than one file, so we have to join them. This window is just letting us know that you have to specify a join type. We don't support the cross joins, or you might be more familiar with the term full Cartesian join. So we will get that changed. And we're going to join these 2 files on product number. That adds down here towards the bottom, and you can see it as an inner join. Then I'm going to go back up and add one more file. So again, we'll have to do a join. Say thank you very much to that message. This time I want to join sales history file to the customer master file on customer number. So here we have our 3 files and our 2 joins. Next is we want to pull in the fields. What kind of data are we going to be displaying? So we do have 3 different files to choose from, so we'll go kind of top down. We'll do our class, and then let's see, product number, and then I would like to see the description, but I think that's it from that one. So then we'll switch to the second file. And here I want to see which customers are buying stuff from us. And then I want to see the total. So we can just click on that field once and then use sum. The last file, I want the customer name. It's a little bit easier to decipher for me instead of the customer number. I'm going to move this field down 1 position so it makes a little more sense. And then I'm going to add a count so I can see the number of orders for product by customer. The next tab will take us to filters or your where clause or heaven clause. And I'm going to want to select, oops, wrong file. I want to select on the year. But instead of setting it to a specific value, I'm going to choose a variable. You can see that we populate the variable name for you. Next, I'd like to sort in ascending by the product number. And then finally, let's spruce up our variable a little bit. I don't like what it says here, so we'll just enter sales year. I'm going to choose a default. It is a couple years old, but we're just working with test data, so that's no problem. And then just like in the View Designer, you can define your integrity tests. We're going to choose a values list here. So when the users run the view, they are presented with a list. You do have the option for show SQL, so you can see the statement that you've built behind the scenes. You cannot change anything from here. It is just display only. When we finish out of the View Builder, we'll come to the Actions tab. First thing I want to make sure you note is if you ever need to get back into View Builder, you can just click this button here and it will reopen. Or if your users are not set with their SQL defaults to automatically start View Builder, if they come into the View Designer, they can go ahead on their own and go into View Builder if they prefer. We take a look at the view, get our prompt, and then everything works just like you are used to having it work here. Of course, this is probably a lot of data, so it'll take a second to come back up. You do also have access to the SQL tab and the Files and Fields tab. If you would like it, you can control that too through the SQL defaults. Right, and that is our lovely View Builder. We will send it back to you now, Cheryl.
Thanks. The Actions tab is really nice in that those options are right there in front of everyone.
Yes, I agree. Yep.
Yeah. Kind of jumping back to where we left off, we're going to move on to a part of the SQL suite of products that we maybe don't talk so much about, and it's called SQL Data Warehouse. Now, a data warehouse is a tool that helps make your data more manageable, particularly to query. And you might think, oh, you know, why do I need all of this? And, you know, we are all kind of stuck with the data that we get. We don't get to, for the most part, don't have the luxury of defining our own database. So you may not have the luxury of having, say, file names that make a lot of sense or are very English-like. And the field names might even be more cryptic. And that even doesn't even touch on the fact of, does the data actually do what you want the data to do? And all of these pieces are where a SQL data warehouse can come in to kind of extract, transform, and load the data. And when I say transform, you know, we see a lot of views where you might have a case statement that says, when the code equals A, then Apple. When the code equals B, then banana, and so on. Well, if you're doing that every time you use the field, because the data isn't stored the way that it's very usable to you, that's where a SQL data warehouse can come into play. Also, when we start talking about active metadata repositories, that's really great when you have large amounts of data. You know, I've been around SQL a long time, and the industry has changed so much. And back in the days when I started in the green screen world, and that's all we had was a dumb terminal, you know, it was crazy to have a file that was 100,000 records. I mean, nowadays that's nothing. I was recently talking to a customer and they had a 4.7 billion, that's with a B, record file. So you can imagine that there's a lot of filtering and going on when they're querying that data. And that's where this data warehouse comes into play. The next screen I'm going to show you, it has a lot going on right here. It tells the full story of defining the architecture behind the data warehouse. And lots of things to come into play. You know, where is your data coming from? Is it from remote? Is it from the iSeries? You know, how do you want to stage it? Do you need to just extract it? Do you need to transform it? Does it need to be loaded? And all of this then defines what type of data warehouse you have, you know, by these labels of atomic tables, data marts, and ODS tables. And we are happy to go into all of this in greater detail with anyone, but we just kind of want you to get you thinking about what the possibilities are, particularly if you're feeling like your data is half the battle to using SQL. SQL is one half, the data is the other half, and data warehousing can really help with that. This tool is really intuitive, and it has a very intuitive graphical interface screen where in the top left is one example of an extract definition. The top right shows joining of 4 data source tables. The bottom left shows us how we can omit data. You know, for instance, that customer with the 4.7 billion record file, you know, they're probably not interested in all of those records on a given report. And a lot of times they might just want the active customers. And so that would be a good use of a filter. And then on the right, bottom right, we show you how you can build a derived field. You know, not every file is going to have all the data the way you want it, and you might often be creating derived fields to do what you need. So give SQL Data Warehouse some consideration if you've had any of those struggles. But as we move on and think about the present, what we're really doing with the work we're doing today is investing in the future of SQL Viewpoint and SQL Web Interface. We really are striving to improve the foundation so that we have a good foundation going forward. Where we've been in the past, a couple big enhancements that have come into play are the template wizards for native SQL, because we, again, you know, we're encouraging the native SQL. We've developed a connection type that does advanced database security, which is true row-level security, which is very powerful. And probably our biggest crowd pleaser of an enhancement that we've done in the recent past is the Excel add-in. We know that so many users want to get data to Excel, and this add-in really facilitates that. It's so exciting that we're going to have Brandy show us a little bit about this add-in.
I'm happy to do that. I
Great.
love the Excel add-in. It's one of my favorite tools that we have available. And you know, Excel is industry or worldwide. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Everybody wants their data in an Excel. So take a real quick look here. Try not to spend too long. I could talk about it forever, but I'll try not to. So I do have a spreadsheet that's open. You can see right away that I'm being prompted, do I want to refresh the data? When you add a view to the Excel spreadsheet that has the Excel add-in activated, you can choose if you want the data to be refreshable or not. So when you open workbook, you'll get prompted. I'm going to say no for now. I do want to point out the formatting that we have here. Nothing too fancy. I've done some bolding and I've centered the values, added a little bit of formatting to the numbers, and then some borders. Whenever you do refresh your data, all of that formatting will stay. So it's a lot better than just, a data dump, if you would, from either an embedded SQL statement or if you were to just display it through Viewpoint. Adding a view is very simple. Go into the Viewpoint option in the toolbar. You click on Add View. And my password was wrong the first time, so I have to type it in again. Once you have been authenticated and you're able to log in, you will get a window that will ask you where you're going to pull the data from. I'm just going to type it in. Hopefully I did that right. You can select the column headers or you can choose to leave them off. You can also truncate the number of rows that you want. If you've got a 1,000,000 row Excel file and you only want to see the top 50 for whatever reason, you can do that. If you leave it at 0, you will get all of the rows that's in the view. The reference allows you to choose where the location is that your data will start. I want mine in cell A1, so we're just going to leave it at that. And then this is where you get to choose if you want the data to be refreshable. If you uncheck this box, the data is going to be static. No changes. You can also select which columns from the view you want to include in the spreadsheet. For this example, I don't want to see the telephone number, so I'm just going to remove that. This is a prompted view, so just like in Viewpoint, we are presented with a window to make our selection. Just choose those states. This is live current data. So it did go out to your iSeries, make that connection, and bring back exactly the same data as you would at that point in time through Viewpoint. The refresh option, you can refresh everything, which would take any tab or anything that you have that has been linked through Viewpoint. It will refresh it, or you can select just the one view. So if we do that, you will see that you'll get reprompted. It runs that view completely again for you. The View References option allows you to see what system the views are, what their names are in libraries, and so on. You can also see some information like, did you select all of the columns, or maybe you did not. If you want to delete something off of the spreadsheet, instead of just deleting the columns, you would want to come into View References and get rid of it that way. We do have two kind of more advanced features that I'll show you real quick. One of them is the extendable area, and that allows you to create a calculation, like I've done here, to get the percent of total, and then let that calculate no matter what your data set is. So if we select extendable area, I already put the range in, and then we tell it which view we want to link it to. The next time you refresh, we get our state list. Let's see. And notice here that I am getting prompted twice. We'll talk about that in just a second. So you'll see that the data changed, so Florida and Georgia, but the calculation also did. So we have a different number of rows returned, but the calculation stays the same. And that's the purpose of extendable area. The other option is a query variable. And what that does is allow you to not be prompted multiple times for the same type of variable. So I've seen a lot of customers use a different tab and put all of their variable prompts here. So we're going to do that too. So we want to specify a query variable, and we'll start with this one, number 4. We'll set it, And then you just tell it which cell you are going to use for the values when you get prompted. We'll do that again one more time. And now that I'm doing that, I'm noticing that I've got an issue. I'm going to try it from the same the same cell instead. I must have been doing something wrong. There we go. So you'll notice that it turns green, and that's highlighted, meaning that this is a cell being used as a query variable. So we set both. And then when you look here, you're able to see that the variable is set. So that's a good thing. Then you just enter the value that you want to use. So instead of being prompted, it will take the value from the query variable area and use that to refresh the data with. All right, I think it's my turn to stop talking about that because, like I said, I could go on forever, but hopefully that was short enough. And Cheryl, you're on mute if you were trying to say something.
I was saying that if the variable was used 10 times in that spreadsheet, by setting it up that way, you're prompted only once.
Right.
That's the key there, and that's what makes that so exciting. We're going to move right along, and we're just got a couple minutes to wrap up, and what we're going to talk about is the future, kind of where we're going. We're actually working on a version of Viewpoint that we were hoping to release by the end of the year or right around New Year's. And it's got enhancements to the view builder. One of the things we did was improve the joining within the view builder, and we're about to release that. And that message you saw about the full Cartesian and the cross join, we're going to make that part a little bit better in this next release. We're also adding greater support within the view builder for the complex native SQL joins. I mean, you can do some crazy joining in native, and we're hoping that we will handle that better. And then looking a little bit forward into 2020, into the probably early part of Q2, we will be releasing a whole suite of the product, SQL Web Interface, and Viewpoint, with a couple of key enhancements. The Viewpoint is going to have some enhancements related to the dashboard that will affect and make it a little bit more stable. We've recognized that from some of your comments that there were some issues there. The other thing that we're doing within Viewpoint is, and it's a very subtle change, no one's going to notice it, but under the covers we're using something called ActBar. There's a newly flagged vulnerability for ActBar, and so we're changing that. And we use ActBar in order to get the toolbars and the drop-down menus. Then we're going to take a look at our variable prompting. If you've ever used star all or star omit for a variable, in other words, I don't want to prompt for a state today, I want all of the states. We're going to make that more user-friendly in terms of the setup of that. And that's where we're going in the early part of 2020. And stay tuned, I'm sure we'll do another one of these webinars in the first part of 2020 to let you know where we're going from there. But our goal is to hear from you. So we do some surveys, and every now and then when we close a support case, you might get a survey. And we also do general surveys a couple times a year to see how you're doing. And we really do digest very wholeheartedly all the comments that come back from those. So we appreciate the time that it takes you to fill those out. I would also love to, hear from any of you at any time, either by email or calling me directly. And our whole goal with our feedback is, we don't want ghosts in the future. We want to have the happy turkey dinner as we go forward, and as the industry changes, and we, try to keep up with it. We're a little bit short on time, so we'll take the questions offline today. But we do want to wish everyone a very happy holiday and thank everyone for joining us today. And I want to thank Brandy for taking the time to show us particularly her favorite part of the Excel add-in.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me to work with you today.
Anytime. And if you have any questions about anything we've presented or any other new question, please do not hesitate to reach out to the support team. Our email address is there, support.sql@helpsystems.com, or otherwise through the portal. You can even open up your own support case out there nowadays. But don't be shy, and we wish you the best for the end of the year and into the new year. Thank you.